Okay.
Got it.
I'm here with Werner Broennimann from youves. Hello, Werner.
Youves, please.
Youves. Okay, youves. There we go. I already learned something in the first 10 seconds. Love it. Youves. Okay. By the way, how did you come up with that name?
Name searching is so hard. I think we looked back and forth. We looked at tons of names, first for our company and then for the platform. And yeah, I think it was just a long, painful brainstorming session. And eventually we came up with this made up name, kind of derived of you invest.
Okay, I see. That's why youves. Okay, got it. Yes. Okay, well, Werner, introduce yourself. I probably know a little bit more about you.
Sure. So, yeah, my name is Werner. My background is I studied finance in university, and then I worked in an investment bank for 8 years doing structuring and sales of derivative products. After that, I worked in a fintech company doing sales and product management. So that was all abroad in London, Singapore, and Hong Kong. After that, I returned back home, worked for PwC, and I did all sort of consulting and audit support in financial services, trading, financial products.
In that was in Switzerland when you went back,
yes,
right? But
that was back in Zurich.
When we had initially met, I think that was 2009 or 10. Were you at PwC at the time, or was
no? That was when I worked in the investment bank.
Okay.
I worked at JP Morgan in London.
All right. Okay. But you're originally from Switzerland.
Yes.
Okay. Zurich area, is that right?
Originally from Basel, but I started in Zurich and I lived in Zurich kind of before I left abroad, and when I came back, I moved back to Zurich. Okay.
All right. What is youves?
So yeah, youves is a platform, autonomous, decentralized, that allows the creation of synthetic assets. So initially it's just a stable token, but that was more of a proof of concept, a stable token on the US dollar. And yeah,
that's the UUSD, right?
Correct.
That's the one, yes.
So, and we tend to use that as a building block for further products as well.
Okay.
We will soon launch another tracker token on a DeFi Index. So we will just track the five biggest, five big.
There was a vote, I think, there somewhere.
Yes.
Wasn't there? I saw something. But didn't the euro win?
Yeah, there was a lot of back and forth, and we put stuff up for vote, but I will probably...
I've been waiting for a euro stable coin forever.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people say that they're very interested in that, but when you ask them how much are you looking to put in, the amounts always seem rather smallish.
I guess, yeah. The beauty of decentralized finance is that you've got lots of people putting in small things. You know?
I mean, look, there's a decent chance we're going to make a euro asset eventually, but at the moment we still need that every asset needs so much attention. We're aiming to launch that DeFi Index first.
Yeah, makes sense.
And once everything is a bit settled down, it's well possible that we're going to launch a euro one as well. Given it's relatively little work after the US dollar already works.
Right. And you mentioned youves is so it's a platform for synthetic assets.
Correct.
Just sort of going back, and you kind of jump right into it, but just going back from explaining it like I'm 5. What is a synthetic asset?
A synthetic asset in the context that we're looking at is an asset that you create on demand, and then you can buy or sell it, and it's designed to track the value of another asset.
So is it like an ETF-ish?
ETF is not too far away, but
not the same.
Not exactly.
Yes.
It's probably more like a derivative, but again,
Right.
that's probably not for a 10-year-old.
Yes, no, that's fine. So it's basically you copying potentially illiquid, but not necessarily illiquid asset, and sort of you putting it somewhere, right, as a deposit, so that you can then sort of synthesize it on chain. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, maybe what seems to help people with understanding of the methodology is when we talk about collateralized loans or Lombard loans or leveraged loans.
Right.
So
like a mortgage?
It's similar, but more with typically with securities that have a daily price. So
Okay.
if you look at the business that private banks do in Switzerland to a large extent, there's someone with like with a securities portfolio. So he has stocks and bonds and God knows what else.
Sure.
And that portfolio is a certain size. And now this client, he's looking to get a loan, say of 100,000 to renovate his house. Banks nowadays, they will do that mostly against a pledge of their securities portfolio, so stocks and bonds. So in the case of these leveraged loans, the private bank will typically say, okay, give us 200,000 worth of your portfolio as security, and we'll lend you 100,000, pretty much no questions asked.
Right.
Because they have the 200,000 worth of portfolio, and then things have to go pretty bad before the bank is really at risk of not receiving anything. Sure. So if the value of the portfolio were then to fall, eventually the bank would start calling the customer and say, look, you either need to give us more of your portfolio, so to top up the value of the collateral.
A margin call.
Yeah, or you pay back some of the loan,
right,
just so that the loan to value remains in a area that the bank is comfortable with. Mm-hmm. This is all contractually agreed on. Now, the synthetic assets that we have, like at the moment, the US dollar, the stable token, works with a very similar methodology. Say you start with $300 worth of test collateral. That will allow you to mint, to create $100 worth of US dollars.
Okay, so it's about you can do a third.
Correct.
Right. Okay, so that's what youves is comfortable with.
Yeah.
In that case. Okay.
I mean, cryptos are very volatile. We know we're a bit more conservative than other projects, and yeah, we will from time to time like review this and see whether it makes sense, and then also like discuss it with the community if we think it needs to be changed.
Okay.
But again, I mean, this will be then a governance issue that we need to address. Now, the 300%, like this 3 times buffer of collateral, will give us a good initial safety margin, so that the tokens that we create, they're actually backed by something. It's not just hot air.
Right.
But the moment the value of the collateral falls by too much, I mean, say the TES loses more and more value, and at the moment all the collateral is TES, then we have this equivalent to a margin call. Because there's no central authority doing anything, people have to monitor their own vaults.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And how much they're collateralized. So, and if the collateral ratio, like this, the value of the collateral divided by the value of the outstanding tokens, if it drops to 2 or below, the vault is open for a third party to step in.
Right.
So then that third party can come in, make the vault whole again.
Right.
Plus a bit extra, but then can grab a bonus out of the excess collateral.
Okay, so it's an incentivized
correct
a way to save the vault in a sense.
Correct.
Okay, that's interesting. You're talking about this stuff as if you sort of have done it for a very long time. I mean, you've obviously been working in banking and finance before. Have you been in the crypto space? Have you had exposure there for the last years?
It's been a hobby of mine since 2013.
Okay.
Initially, I was very skeptic, and then I liked it a bit more, but I guess I was always a bit back and forth.
Okay.
I remember in 2016, I did a course on smart contracts.
All right.
I was trading Bitcoin futures on one of those exchanges for a while, and
that we will not mention.
I didn't really make a lot of money, really not, but it was an interesting experience, and I thought somehow this starts to resemble traditional finance more and more. And I always thought, like, I really know this stuff, so I should get involved here.
Right. And how did that happen? I mean, how did you decide to sort of launch a startup and create youves? Can you sort of tell us a bit more about how that happened and the process?
Sure. So last year in March, I got together with my co-founders, really, and we because I knew them through other friends, and we talked back and forth, and we said that we should really do something in that space. So we were initially a bit uncertain whether we should do just these collateralized loans or whether we should do a stable token. And then I started working out some details on a just purely conceptual basis, how this could look like.
Sorry, some details on
conceptual details, how this could look like.
Yeah.
But it was still kind of a bit on the side. We're not really that committed. And then I actually was let go of my last job. I got my notice end of July for the end of October, but I was pretty much on gardening leave right away. And then in September, I started working almost full-time, pretty much full-time on just working out how such a project could look like. Okay.
And then when did you decide that you had to found a company? And were you always considering Switzerland as sort of the base, or did you look at other opportunities? And what made you actually choose that location? Was it simply convenience, or did you look at things like let's say regulatory issues or financial, or et cetera, et cetera? What are the sort of considerations that you have to do when you're in a Swiss sort of startup phase?
We were discussing this a bit back and forth, but given that Switzerland with its crypto valley is, I'd say, one of the less hostile environments,
right?
We thought like it makes sense that we do it here. Yeah. Also, I mean, obviously also for convenience, given that we all live here.
Sure.
And we just thought, okay, I mean, we could go to whatever, Singapore or God knows where, but then it would create just a lot more overhead. And given that we all have our lives here already.
It made sense.
Yeah, it made sense.
Okay, yeah. And was it difficult, the whole setup of the structure, or did that go quite smoothly?
Yeah, I mean, the founding of the company, like the company is actually called Ubinetic. That's the
company that created youves.
Yeah. Okay. So that was fairly straightforward. It just takes some time, and you need to do all these things that are required to found a company.
So walk us through a sort of a typical startup day in the life of Werner.
Yeah, when after my coffee in the morning, I start looking at my to-do list, and typically there's something else that comes in that's more urgent than the things I had set out to do. But currently, I'd say like the new asset on the DeFi Index is what's mostly on my mind.
Okay, so because you are on the website, it says you are in charge of sort of synthetic asset creation.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. So that's interesting. So how would you go about that process in terms of the DeFi index?
So, I mean, in a way, given that it's a community project, we will just make a suggestion for the rest of the, like for the community, so that we can see where like we can agree on an index, but in order to make that suggestion, it needs to be fleshed out fairly well, so we actually know what we're deciding on.
Yeah.
So at the moment, I'm finalizing the definition of this index.
Okay.
We're also looking how does the user interface need to change? How does what other interactions are going to be created? What complexity is added? And I guess like going from one asset to two, basically to more than one, creates a lot of new questions.
Yep.
I'm also working on a documentation, trying to change that, rebuild that in a way so that it reflects what we're doing, but also so that there's not a lot of double entries, so that the things that need to be described in one place are in one place. And I try to anticipate that to a certain extent, but now I realize, okay, a lot of things need to be changed anyway.
Yeah. Did you do any beta testing on these things? I think that's quite useful in these occasions where people are like, oh, I've tried this, but if you're sort of repeating yourself, or there's this and that, or you just sort of test in prod.
Yeah, I mean, technically youves is still in beta at the moment.
True that, yeah.
And yeah, we received a lot of feedback on the documentation. I mean, and there's, to a certain extent, youves is already fairly complex. And so people complain about the complexity, which is fair enough. But the documentation itself that I wrote to a large extent, because of my background, is just quite technical, and I still have to relearn a bit how to describe things like a normal human. So
yeah, I mean, there's a few videos. I think there's one by Mac Bays.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mac, if I'm mispronouncing your name. Where he kind of walks through the steps. I think that's quite useful when people do that to sort of share the screen and show that. I think that was helpful, and I'm sure there will be videos made for the sort of indexes and stuff. So that's a good thing. Yes.
Yeah, the videos are definitely a good idea. It's just they take quite a bit of time.
Yeah. But luckily you have the community, and I think sort of you're also engaged in creating a community, as I understand.
Yes.
Is that something that you've already had in mind in the beginning, or is that something that you've realized sort of after you started it, that's actually something you really need to look at, even though it's quite sort of a financial sort of product? And
yeah, I mean, given that we always want to have youves as a community project, so that it's something run by the community, that ubinetic is the developer and can suggest changes, but really the community is in charge. And as a consequence, it also makes sense that we have this champions program with the community, where it's not always ubinetic doing the messaging and reaching out to people, because this should really be like from the community for the community.
Agreed. I think that's a great initiative, which I'm lucky to be part of. So thanks for that. That was great. I think crypto is a lot about sort of community building and making people feel at home in certain projects. So in on that sense, it's the choice of Tezos for your project is also fascinating. Is that something that you had always known that you wanted, or how did you end up deciding to build on Tezos?
My co-founders, Alessandro and Pascal, they had extensive experience with Tezos. Okay. And they basically made that decision. And when we talked about it, it made sense to me as well, given like it's the proof of stake, not proof of work, and it's updatable, and it has all these features that are actually really neat and that also in tune with what we're looking to do.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I mean, I would have chosen Tezos too, so I'm very happy you did. So there are other sort of synthetics projects out there in the crypto world, let's say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you take any sort of, did you look at them to sort of see what they were doing right or wrong, or sort of did you just do it from scratch? I mean, there's the obvious SNX token,
Mm-hmm.
or the synthetics. Is that something that you were looking at, or there's something
Yeah,
that you?
We look quite extensively at other projects,
Mm-hmm.
like synthetics, MakerDAO, and so on. Yeah, it was a bit of a mixed approach. On the one hand, we wanted to see what's out there, how, like what mechanisms do people use for their products. But on the other hand, it's already not that simple to determine how well it works. I mean, you can look at, say, with a stable token like the DAI, you can see how well it tracks, but you don't really see how much market making is behind it, like how much are people actually trading to keep it in line, and to what extent is just the setup of the token assuring that it works the way it does. So we kind of had to do a mixed approach of, on the one hand, looking what's out there, and that definitely helped us just to get ideas of what is possible, how can you get around the limitations of a blockchain compared to just programming like a normal code or database that runs centralized.
Right.
But on the other hand, we also had to work a bit from first principles, just to see, like, how can something, like how can we set up an incentive structure that will hopefully make a token track its underlying, or like say the dollar, that,
right.
that it is there and doesn't deviate too much.
And how is that? Because it's not it's not like Tether, right, where there is an underlying asset, sort of a backed asset. It's you do have some kind of mechanism, right? Sort of.
Correct.
Yeah.
On the one hand, we, like, first of all, we have this collateral that's 3 times as much, at least at the beginning, as the value of the tokens,
right,
or can be more as well. Then we have an adaptive interest rate mechanism. At the moment, this is weekly, so that if the value of the token is below the value of the US dollars, the UUSD.
Okay, so if the value of the UUSD is below the USD, yes.
Correct. Then the interest rate on the UUSD goes up. Okay. And if it's above, the interest rate goes down. And this affects both the holders of the UUSD and also the minters.
Right. So it's the debt and the USD both go up in a sense, and the interest rate for those.
Correct. And the idea being that, say, with rising interest rates, that the holding becomes comparatively more attractive and the minting becomes comparatively less attractive.
Okay.
And vice versa. Now, at the moment, we see, like, maybe we need to recalibrate this a little bit, but really it's quite difficult, like, to
get it right away.
Yeah, because it's easy to just say, okay, it should be roughly like in this direction, but how often should we update? Right. How large should the steps be?
Right. I mean, there was just a vote also on Colibri. I don't know if you followed that. Mm-hmm. To lower their sort of reserve rate as well. Mm-hmm. So I think there's similar questions being asked all over where they have these kind of stable coins. But yeah, and in terms of users, have you seen any sort of progress since you've launched, or how are you sort of getting the message out, increasing the users of youves? Are you looking to sort of do it entirely sort of grassroots based, or are you? I mean, you especially you have, I'm sure, connections with all kinds of high finance institutions. Is that something that you're looking at doing and sort of getting involved as well with?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely looking to talk to institutional partners as well, but most of that is still at very early stages, so we need to see where that goes. Yeah, at the moment it's mainly grassroots, but because we really want to collect some experience on how these things work, right, and what we need to iron out still.
Yeah,
we've had, given that we launched, I think, on the 22nd of July, so a bit more than a month ago. Mm-hmm. We've had reasonable growth yet. I mean, at the moment it's 3 million tests locked in vaults and 3.2 million US dollar minted.
3 million tests locked. Okay, yeah, that's great. It's more than the automated market maker has on chain, which already I think was a huge success. But well done. That's fantastic. Do you have a kind of roadmap where you want to be in, let's say, 5 to 10 years, or do you sort of play it by ear and see where it goes?
I guess it's being in a startup, there always has to be some kind of combination of the two. I mean, definitely we need to have an idea of where we want to go, but then we have to be adaptive as to like what actually works.
Right.
So we're definitely looking to launch more assets like tracker tokens. Mm-hmm. And we're also looking to launch options pretty soon. Initially, it will be just an option spread, like a call spread, leveraged on possibly Tez dollar or on Bitcoin dollar.
Okay.
So
cool.
that, yeah, we'll probably start with a weekly product. And then, yeah, we have a lot more ideas. We just have to see when we have time to actually work on them.
Okay, so are you I mean, you still, I guess you're working full time, but the team is still relatively small in that sense.
Yes.
Are you looking to grow? Is that something that you don't quite need yet, or how does that work?
That's something we need to decide pretty soon. So we were talking already about potentially raising money and then hiring more people, but yeah, we need to kind of see like where exactly we want to go and what we're willing to do for that. But okay. I think one way or another, we probably hire some people. Depends a bit.
Yes.
How much?
There's today, I think there is I saw something yesterday on the U token, because I've tried to sort of get some use on the Quibbers, but there was back in the days, at least, a lot of slippage. There's I think there's something that you've been looking at as well, right?
Yeah, we're looking to incentivize the liquidity pool for U versus Tez with U tokens as well. So similar to what other projects are doing. And this was on our mind for quite a while, but yeah, we just didn't have time, and we finally got around to do it.
Yep. So can we talk about that? Is that something that's happening? I think happening fairly soon, right?
Yes. I've not been fully involved with that because I was actually on holidays first time round since September, but but yeah,
it's on the Crunchy. On the Crunchy website, right? So you can deposit your LP tokens.
Exactly. So we just have a 4-week test phase starting today, if I'm not mistaken. That lasts for 4 weeks, and 4,000 U tokens are up for grab during this time for people who are liquidity providers.
Okay, that's generous. So the U's are not are they open-ended? Do they have an infinite supplies, or is there a max supply?
There is a max supply. So the use at the moment, the creation is 45,000 per week.
Okay.
5,000 of which go to Ubinetic as a developer.
Right.
There was nothing pre-minted.
Okay. So quite a let's say a democratic.
Yeah, we really thought like we want to avoid some of these. How do you best say, like, kind of not so nice ways of setting this up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the supply is halving every 12 months or every year.
Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah, get your U tokens.
Yeah,
now,
and
I guess
with the halving and the start and everything, so it lent somewhere around 4.68 million.
Okay. All right.
That will be the max supply.
All right. Awesome. Okay. I think
maybe one more word about the longer term outlook.
Exactly. That was going to be my final question.
So yeah, like as I said, like medium term, we're definitely looking to do more assets, more options as well, and all sort of other potential products that we'll see which makes most sense. What I thought for a long time, also when I still worked at the bank, was that certain products that you see in banking that are really only open for institutional investors would also make sense for retail investors. Like for instance, hedging like interest rates, having a fixed rate for a long time on, say, a mortgage.
Okay.
Would be something that I think for many people would be very beneficial. I mean, we've been in an environment where rates were falling and falling, so fixed didn't really help you. But if inflation ever really picks up to an extent that rates are going to rise again, it'll be painful for people on floating rate mortgages. And unlike in the US, where you can have these 30-year mortgages fixed and with an option to cancel every moment, here in Switzerland and most of Europe, you can't really do that. And say you can do up to 10 years, and it's painful and it's expensive if you want to cancel. So if you had access to interest rate derivatives where you could just hedge that would make it a lot easier. But I think this is also the point where we're getting to limitations of peer-to-peer finance. So I think if we could build a bridge between something like youves as a facilitator to access retail clients, and then have an API connection to the books of a large market maker, where you could just say, okay, these things just drip in. You still make more money than on institutional trades, like a larger spread, but comparatively, it's much cheaper for retail investors than if they were just going or trying to access that market via a private bank or God knows what.
Yeah.
Because there's just too many people involved, too many hands touching it. And like this, you can never, like, if you want to hedge a mortgage of, say, $500,000, euros, Swiss francs for whatever, 10 years, it doesn't really make sense for a bank to pick up the phone to do that. Where it spreads out. But if that's fully automated, it's something that actually can make sense.
Yeah, then the volume can also increase significantly.
Exactly, and then it just drips in, and the market maker sees, okay, this is my position now, and whether it's 1 or 100 extra trades, it's all fully automatic, and the market maker can just manage the book.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Another thing that we've been looking at here in my sort of day job was FX swaps or futures. sort of euro dollar currently getting hammered there. So I think that's also something that could be interesting for the retail market.
Sure.
But yeah, fascinating. Werner, very, very interesting project. And one more thing I need to say, and I've said that many times also on Twitter. I really, really, really love your user interface. It's I think it's one of the best for me. You know, I mean, I'm not a big fan of those stars and whistles and bells and little cute animals coming up. So I think it looks great, but it's also quite nice to use. So well done on the user interface.
Thanks a lot.
That's yeah.
I had nothing to do with the user interface because it's not really not my expertise, but I'm also very positively surprised just how nice it is, and I really like it.
It does. Cool. Thank you very much for your time, Werner. It was a pleasure speaking to you again, and I'm sure we'll be in touch, and perhaps we can repeat this a little bit in the future, and then sort of have a look back on how youves has developed since this conversation.
Sure.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Werner,
you too.
And speak soon. Ciao.
Speak soon. Bye-bye.